Hey friends, another video here with No Name Trapper. Today's video is about fur handling. Alright, now a lot of people think when you think of fur handling video that it's, once you got it back to the shop and so on and so forth and you're getting ready to flash it. And this video's, it's not like that. This video is going to be once you make the catch. As soon as you make that catch, a timer kicks on, whether you know it or not. Okay, so there's several things that we got to factor into this. Okay, the first thing is, what species is the animal? For instance, if it's a bobcat or a beaver, there's two different situations completely. Bobcat starts to green belly quicker due to their diet. A beaver, you can probably, in reasonable conditions, you can have laying on its back out of the sun for half a day, and it's not going to green belly and still be fine to skin. So species is the first thing we're going to think about. Second thing we're going to think about is the sun, sunlight on that animal. The temperature, is that fur wet and muddy or bloody and wet? These are all factors that we got to pay attention to. So you got species, you got sun, you got temperature, you got wet fur, muddy and bloody, all that is going to be explained in this video. Alright, so let's get going with this. Alright guys, so let's start with species. Alright, so with each species, you've got a different process, or a timer, based on their diet, the thickness of their skin underneath the fur, and the moment that that animal is dispatched, you have set off that timer. Now, your species can vary. Like I said, raccoon and beaver are great examples of an easy species to work with. If you put them belly up out of the sunlight on a, let's say, 60-degree day, you've got a lot of time to work with before they start to get green belly. And green belly is when they start to, the stomach acids start to eat away, and it starts to eat away at the skin. Okay, it's a process that takes less time with raccoon and beaver, but with like bobcat, red fox is a very hard one because they're so thin-skinned and their diet is so acidic that as soon as you dispatch a red fox, you're on a timer, and it's a quicker timer than if you're on a one with a raccoon or a beaver. Now, another one that could throw you off is a muskrat. Muskrats are on a timer the second you dispatch them, or they went in a drowning set or whatever. Their bellies will start to green belly pretty quickly. Okay, so first thing to remember, it's based on species, how much time you have after you dispatch that animal. So species, very important. Raccoon, beaver, little more time. Some of these other animals we're talking about, less time. Coyotes, all those, green belly really quickly. Alright guys, so now that you realize that you're on a timer, it's based on species, what can you do to slow down green belly? Now there's several different things we can do. The first thing is we can keep them out of the sunlight. Okay, sunlight's going to cook that animal internally very quickly, and the heat speeds up that acidic reaction time and starts the green belly process quicker. So keeping that animal out of sunlight will help. That's hard to do, I know it is, but that's why I put a topper on the back of my white truck this year. That and to keep rain and snow off stuff. But anyways, out of the sunlight. Next thing you can do, lay that animal on its back, belly up in the back of the truck, okay, or whatever your vehicle is. And what that's going to do is, when green belly starts to occur, it starts to work away at the belly, right? Where if you lay it on its back, it takes longer to work up than it does to, where if you laid it belly down in your truck, you're just feeding that process quicker. Everything settles down, and it just starts that process quicker. So, step 2, first sunlight. Second, lay it on its back, belly up in the back of the truck. Okay, third thing you need to factor in on this situation is temperature. And if the temperature is, let's say, Well, today it's 90 degrees. That's no good at all. I mean, you're gonna start green bellying like pretty quickly. If it was a 50-degree day, that's good. You can work with that for a while. But again, remember, it's based on species too, how much time you have. Okay, so these are the things we need to factor in and think about before we dispatch the animal. Okay, think about that timer, think about that green belly, think about what you need to do to get ahead of that. Now, another situation we need to factor in, guys, is that animal wet and muddy or have blood, a bunch of blood on it, okay? Because that changes the scenario a little bit. It's something that definitely needs factored in. So there's some immediate actions you can take to help with that situation. Now, the first thing is, if, let's say that animal's muddy and wet and you've dispatched it and it's in a creek, okay? Well, perfect. You can take that animal, splash it off really good, give it a quick bath, rinse it off, and then you bring it up the truck. You lay it in the truck, on the side of the truck with the wet fur. Okay, separating wet fur from dry fur, that's a whole nother thing too. Definitely something to factor in. But anyways, you clean that animal, you put that animal in the back of the truck, belly up, and let it air dry. Now, if it's died recently, the body heat will help evaporate the water off, so it'll dry off quickly. So it's very important that if you get an animal that's very muddy and wet and you've just dispatched it, go ahead and get it cleaned off there. That way it'll evaporate quickly and it'll be clean. Then you don't have anything you have to deal with. Okay, so try to get that animal cleaned up quickly. Let's say you're in the middle of a field. There is no water nearby or anything. Okay, now that's a different situation. Now, you need to just plan on putting that animal in the back of the truck or the UTV, belly up, okay? And you're going to be thinking, well, when I get a few animals and I get near a place with water, I need to wash them off, especially if it's a mud mess, right? You don't want to take that home to the fur shed. You can avoid that whole situation. So you're going to be thinking, when I get next time near a pond or a river or something like that, boom, I can wash these animals off. All right, but the amount of time these animals' fur is wet is very important. You do not want them to be wet any longer than they have to be. It starts a whole process. Fur is on a timer. Every time that we dispatch an animal, we are on a timer. Alright guys, so now we've talked about, the species, the green belly up, keeping them belly up. We've talked about, if you've got mud or blood, getting it washed off and getting it washed off good before you bring it back to the shop. It's much better in my opinion if you can do that all on carcass before you skin the animal. Okay, so now we're to the next step. This is all one major step. And it's a quick process, so let me show you the next part. Alright guys, here's the next part. The next part is, my truck's a mess, so pardon the mess, but basically after we get all my sets out and we start trapping, one side's going to be wet fur, one side's going to be dry fur. You do not put them together. You keep them separated in the back of the truck or whatever your vehicle you're using is. You do not want to get your dry, clean fur wet and muddy or blood on it. Okay, so I just usually designate one side and, clean and dry, the other side wet and muddy or bloody. And then, like I said, I try to clean those throughout the day. Okay, so that's a very important part, the organization of your truck with your fur. Keep that in mind. Wet and dry, different sides, or at least different areas where they can't affect each other. Alright guys, and when you go to clean your fur, the cleaner the water, the cleaner the fur's gonna be. So I mean, if it's muddy water, right now we're in a drought here, you couldn't find water except at a lake or a big pond, right? And so this is your only chance at clean water right now here in Iowa. Okay, but the cleaner the water, the better that animal's going to clean off. But dirty water sometimes is better than doing nothing, depending on how bad the fur is, with blood or mud on it. Alright guys, I know That information may not have been, too overwhelming for some of you, but if you're a new trapper or having problems with your fur handling, you can solve a lot of those problems before we even get it back to the fur shed. So I hope that helps somebody out. I appreciate you guys. Tight chains, and I'll see you next time.